Hello, welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton, and we are here for movie reviews. And we got two movies that came out this weekend that warrant talking about. And one of them is the top opener of the year. That is Toy Story 5. It's actually one of the top openers of quite a long time. The well, okay, so Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021 opened with 260 million, and then Deadpool Wolverine 211 million in 2024, and then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness 187, Black Panther Wakanda Forever 181, and these are all post-pandemic movies. We've got, oh my god, Minecraft movie 162, Barbie also 162, Toy Story 159. So number 24 all time. This is just domestic numbers, and but it is the second highest opening of all time for a Pixar movie, number one being Incredibles 2 with 182 million. So, Toy Story 5, obviously, oh, do we really need this movie? Yeah, clearly we really needed this movie because 160 million dollars worth of people said we need this movie. And the way I look at the Toy Story movies is Toy Story 1, 2, 3, that was a trilogy. Lifted it up, put it on its own thing. That's done. That cake is baked. That bread is baked. I'm going to take a little bit of that bread, the starter from that bread, and start a new loaf. Okay. And that has given us Toy Story 4, Toy Story 5. This is the Bonnie trilogy, let's call it. And where we left off with Toy Story 4, which kind of felt like the end, was that Woody went off with Bo Peep and a bunch of toys that were basically, lost toys that were okay being lost toys. And now in Toy Story 5, we find that the toys that are still with Bonnie, primarily, the main character in this one is going to be Jesse, and to go with Jesse, Bullseye, and obviously Buzz Lightyear being the love interest of Jesse. They are being pushed aside in favor of tech, in favor of an iPad called a lily pad that is taking up Bonnie's time and taking away her imagination. And it's kind of like an obvious sequel. It's kind of like, okay, yeah, this obviously, that's clearly where this was going. And I feel like that's okay. Like, I don't mind that it might be obvious and even feel a little late. Like, okay, we've had iPads for, well over a decade now. And iPads have been, ubiquitous for kids in that entire time, and now kids are getting phones, and now for the last 10 years also, kids have been getting their own phones and stuff. And so the replacement of technology, or not the replacement, but the placement of technology in the lives of kids and how they interact with the world around them, has been obvious, even since, probably Toy Story 3 came out, and so the I'm not going to say the problem, but the okay, we'll call it the problem. So the potential problem is are they going to be able to make it feel relevant? Are they going to be able to make us care? And this is Pixar, this is Toy Story, and the answer very simply is yes. I mean, that this is a movie that digs. We know from Toy Story 2 Jesse's backstory a little bit, where she was the favorite toy of a little girl, who eventually found a telephone and boys, and Jessie got left under the bed and then eventually donated, and she's been, in storage ever since, and it's been difficult for her. And then finding Andy, finding Woody and Buzz, and finding Andy was like a huge release for her. And then becoming Bonnie's favorite, and seeing the dynamic of Woody, being replaced as the favorite by Jessie, in Toy Story 4. And we've done that, and now it's time to revisit sort of what we were seeing in Toy Story 2 and really delve into the Jessie's situation, while also understanding that that kids can get lost in the technology, but they don't necessarily it can be temporary. Like a kid can both have the tech and remember to play, and it's super touching. There's a moment in the third act in this movie when Jessie is kind of exploring her past, and like an important there's an important revelation. I'm not gonna it's really difficult to give the revelation without doing any spoilers, so I'm gonna just kind of leave it at that. There is a revelation about Jessie's past that we stumble upon, and I mean, just tears. Like, it's just, there was no, Pixar just absolutely knows what they're doing. And some people call it manipulation. I will call it good storytelling and knowing how to get people to feel that sort of emotional connection to a movie, and bravo for them. And yeah, I mean, they absolutely, Pixar absolutely does it again. And it's interesting because we're on Toy Story 5, and so Toy Story 5 makes 159 million dollars on its opening, and Incredibles 2 did 182, and Hoppers, which was a really good movie from the fall, a really good Pixar movie from the fall, barely did 159 total box office for its entire run. And you see that happen, and it's like, oh well, Pixar can only do sequels, and it's like, no, I disagree, because Hoppers is a genuinely good movie. But it's difficult to make an original that registers and piques people's interest at the level that, like, something like a Toy Story movie is going to do, or bringing The Incredibles back to screen. And I don't think that is not a knock on the other things that Pixar does. Like, in the middle of the pandemic, one of the big problems was that Disney was started releasing Pixar movies straight to Disney Plus. And Soul is a movie like that, where it's like, if Soul had been given a chance to open in theaters without going straight to Disney Plus, I mean, that was such a good movie, and so emotionally and thematically rich, that I feel like it's the kind of movie that would have resonated, would have had legs, and it'll be interesting to see if Toy Story 5 has legs, because I do feel like it will, especially considering, like, we've got 2 full weeks before the 4th of July. So it's gonna have an opportunity to drop off a little bit the second week, but then really carry on the third week. We'll see. I love looking at these things, and I really did I really did enjoy revisiting Buzz and Woody and Jessie and all the gang. I will say, this is not a perfect movie, okay? So there are problems. There are problems. The parents do things that are like, if you were given that information online, you're not reacting the way that these parents react. But that's okay. And there are moments in the movie that are like, Yeah, I mean that's oversimplifying really the people's relationship to social media and stuff. But again, I think that's okay. Like I think those taking shortcuts in a movie like this are okay. Here at Real to Real Talk, instead of giving stars out, we give out tacos. And if we feel like something deserves a little bit of extra kick to it, instead of doing like a half a star where you do half a taco, we add guac. Why? Because nobody eats to have a fucking taco. This one gets 4 tacos plus guac. It just it's such a great movie. There the it does is it on the level of 5 or 1? No. It's touching on 2. I like it a little better than 4. But yeah, I mean, I think 4 plus guac is a really super fair ranking. Um, uh, you know, I think there's an argument for 5 tacos. I don't think there's an argument for 5 plus guac though. And that was Toy Story 5. The next movie we're talking about is The Death of Robin Hood from A24. A24 is on an absolute fucking roll this summer. Like they are just releasing movie after movie. Like so many movies this weekend. Not this weekend, but this year and this summer in particular. Back Rooms was A24, so good. And we've got another one here with The Death of Robin Hood. This is starring Hugh Jackman as a very old Robin Hood in 1267, and we are introduced to his character in the middle of nowhere, all alone, approached by a young person, like late teens, I would say, person, who it appears to be in some distress, looking for food. Robin offers him a seat and some food, and we find out that the person was actually there as retribution, and Robin Hood picks up on it. And this is a movie of 3 acts. And look, I know every movie's 3 acts, but the changes from one act to the next in this movie is very intentional, very jarring, and done with just such a wonderfully deep and meaningful and insightful tone. And the first act is just jarring. The first act is bleak and just as violent as you could imagine. Look, it's impossible to watch Hugh Jackman here and not be like, make parallels to Logan. It's the all of the gory bits of Logan funneled into a 40-minute intro to a movie. And we see Hugh Jackman as Robin Hood. We see Robin Hood trying to help one of his merry men. I mean, that phrase never comes up in this movie. Trying to help with a problem he's having where somebody has kidnapped his wife and overtaken his home. And so Robin Hood's going to help him take it back. And the problem is, as we saw with the kid in the beginning, is that there are a lot of people that have been aggrieved by Robin Hood and all of his friends that want retribution and revenge. And we find out throughout the movie that this movie just takes the idea of Robin Hood on a hero and kicks that to the curb and says, there are no heroes. There are only attempts to justify the actions of somebody to make them seem heroic from a certain point of view. And it's pretty clear, Robin Hood makes it very clear that he's not the one that told those tales, and he doesn't try to pretend to be the person who is represented in those tales. but also he also doesn't make any attempts to, you know, turn away from him either, like, or rectify the things that he has done that may not have been communicated in the tales, but clearly are things that he did do that are morally questionable. And you know, he was nothing more than a thief and a brigand, and and ultimately a murderer. And so we see that in the first act. I just brutally so. We see that in the first act. And then as a result of this, what he's doing, Little John takes him to an island where Jodie Comer is a healing nun who takes him in and show, you know. And now the second act, from the brutality of the first act, we go into the respite of the second act, where it's healing, and it's contemplation, and it's you know, uh, not so much confronting your past or dealing with your past, but rather moving beyond your past and into a future that can allow you to exist in peace. Um, and it's slow. Like, you know, I get it. There are going to be people who are like, "Oh my god, the second act is so boring." I was absolutely captivated. I really loved the first act, and I loved the second act, and I loved the just the obvious imbalance that they have, that first act and the second half have with each other. And then the third act starts, and it becomes an attempt to rectify those two things, and allow those two things to square, and they can't. You know, and that's just that, you know, and the title right there tells you the death of Robin Hood. And you know, so there's no spoiler warning there. The third act explains you know, why it has to end the way that it does. And I will say, ultimately, I felt like it might have been slightly more satisfying if the third act had been a better blend of act one and act two. Because it really is less a blend of act one and act two, and far more the realization of somebody who went through act one that they cannot live in the world of act two. And I feel like there is a way as the filmmaker to make that a little more exciting, but that is a criticism. That is also not the story that they're looking to tell. And so my opinions here, I have to meet the film on the terms where it was. And my opinion on the film is just that, like, after going through act one and then going through act two, and then having to have a denouement or a resolution between or rectifying between those two in act three, I feel like um I feel like there that it doesn't necessarily, that third act doesn't necessarily work for me entirely. But I also I didn't hate it, like, you know. And I wasn't like, oh, this sucks, or oh, this doesn't work. It just I it felt very um somebody being resigned to an ending rather than somebody you know, of the, you know, urgency that he showed in the first act, and the deliberate nature of his actions in the first act. That third act just didn't it was deliberate but more passive than active. And I would have really preferred an active third act. And the third act just felt like an ending rather than like a final act. And that's okay, but it's just, you know, ultimately that's not necessarily what's going to work the best for me. But hey, you know what? still a Four Taco movie. Yeah, I loved I genuinely loved the first two acts. Genuinely. And the different feelings that they presented and the different sides of the world that they presented. And I applaud them for that. The third act just didn't quite land it for me. That's okay. That was it. Real talk. Toy Story 5. Death of Robin Hood. We're gonna have more movies for you next week. Eventually we might have Sergio come back. Who knows? He will be coming on again very soon. Hopefully before the Odyssey, but at least for the Odyssey, that gives you like about a month to look forward to that. Go out, go see movies. Go see Toy Story 5 or Death of Robin Hood. Both 100% worth your time. Thanks. Have a great one.